Hey Diana, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, to get started, can you give us a little bit of context in your background in design?
Yeah, for sure. So currently I'm head of design at GitHub. So I lead all our design teams from brand and marketing to design systems, product design. We have some design engineers on the team, and also a customer research team. I've been at GitHub for, it will be 9 years on Sunday, actually,
Wow.
December 15th. So yeah, it's been a long time. I focused on design systems and design infra for probably about 6 years of my time here, and then the last three I've been in the head of design role, leading the whole design org. So yeah, quite a while, but it's been a
Hi.
good journey.
Yeah, that's an awesome journey. And I want to talk about you mentioned designers should code, and I'm wondering how much of that is due to the world you live in, right? Like you're at
hmm
GitHub, you're at a very dev focused company, or do you think that is really like every designer should code?
I think so. I obviously have a huge bias, because being a designer who can code has opened doors for me, and it's had
Right.
in a really positive way. It's pretty awesome to have gotten these opportunities and to live in some amazing cities and work in this field. And then, yeah, of course, I am influenced by working at a developer tools company,
Yeah.
surrounded by very nerdy designers. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I yes, I would say like it's almost like I think learning another language. It's going only going to in the most for the most part, I think it's going to benefit you. I think that there are roles where it's obviously more important and less important. If you're working in software and designing software, yeah, it's going to really help you understand like how the machine works. For GitHub, obviously, we are designing for developers. So for us, there's an extra value in having designers that can code because we have just a little bit more deeper understanding of what it's like to be a developer, because we've gone through some of the same experiences that as they have used some of the same tools, some of the same workflows. I don't think that you have to be an archetype of the people that you design for, but it certainly helps. And it means you're going to be, maybe a slightly better judge of some decisions. It doesn't replace needing to talk to customers and do user research and things like that, but it can just help you get like a little bit further. You can self-critique, like, is this a good experience? Does it solve a problem for me in this workplace?
I like that explanation. It's not like you're replacing the dev team, like you're still working with them, but I
Yeah.
think it's a very good like parallel to all the design leaders now that are like learn the business, speak the business. Why is that? It's because
hmm
product speaks the business and you need to be able to talk to the product as well. Speaking of
Yeah.
product, how do you collaborate with the product team?
Yeah, so we tend to work in squads at GitHub. Not that I think is a fairly common model these days. So there tends to be an engineering, product, and design lead in each team. That each, depending on like the nature of the work, those teams can be different sizes, but that tends to be our model. I think product and design should be working towards like the same goals, really. Like you should
Yeah.
be working towards delivering an absolutely fantastic customer experience, the best that it can be for the type of product that you're working on. And so I think it's really important to work in harmony and together. Um, each role is going to, be a stronger voice in different ways. So like I think for design, you are kind of fighting for the user. They're really the people that should be ultimately responsible for that experience. But there's definitely overlap in accountability there with a product leader because they're looking at mapping business goals and business
Yeah.
needs to user needs. Um, design should also be thinking about that too, but there's probably a slightly greater responsibility. And and I think, there can be lots of collaboration on the strategy and like how do we get there? What are the outcomes that we're trying to see? What is the context from what we're working from? Ultimately, everyone has an impact on that end user experience. Engineers need to care about that too, because how they implement something can have a huge effect, like performance as an obvious example. It's about working together, using our skills to find the best outcome.
Yeah, no, I love that. You've worked on a ton of teams, across a ton of teams at different companies, and you lead teams. I'm wondering what makes for an effective design culture or maybe even overall culture.
Yeah, I think culture is incredibly important. I think you have to be really intentional with your culture, because that will influence the outcomes that your team produce. I think it's as important to invest in your culture as it is in the product, because one impacts the other.
True.
I think of culture as trying to create an environment where people can do their best work, and to do their best work, they need to understand expectations. And that's where you need all those sorts of design frameworks and things that help you understand things like the brand personality, the design system, like the what a good user or a good quality experience means to this particular company that you're working in. So you need to have it's really important to like set those expectations and people to know the direction that they're all heading in. And you also need people to be able to be their most authentic and best selves.
Yeah.
And so that's where creating a culture where there's psychological safety, where people feel they can have their voices heard, that is inclusive and diverse in representation. I think that you end up with better results if you are open to the diverse voices and collective skills of a team. You still need to lead, right? You still need to
Yeah.
have people that are driving the mission and setting a direction for the team. But you also need to make sure that you're open to hearing those voices, and ideally you're building a team that has skills that not any one person on their own could hold.
Final question is, what advice would you have for new designers that are entering the field today?
Yeah, so it's probably a particularly interesting time right
Yeah,
now
for
to be
sure.
entering the field. You've probably heard of this thing called AI. Um, so I mean that's obviously like a big focus area for us at GitHub, as for developers, and thinking about expanding like what it means to be a developer and learning to code. So when I relate that to, I think there's lots of similarities with thinking about how designers are up and coming and what they need to be thinking about today. So I think there's things that stay true no matter what's going on in technology. I think be curious is the key. Experiment, play, explore with technology, with design techniques, with your creativity. Find your style, and do a lot of copying as well. Like learn from others. I think you have to like sometimes the best way to like learn the craft is to sort of look at how someone else has done it and like try and recreate that, and that like gives you a deeper understanding. But you also need to balance that with finding your own style and your own approach, and like what motivates you as well. um I think that if you want to get into software design, or even just other areas of graphic design, be open to working with AI.
Mhm.
Right now, I don't think we're at the place where, for many roles and tasks, I don't think generative AI replaces a designer, but I think that um, increasingly being able to use those tools as part of your stack is going to be increasingly important and valuable to you because there are tasks that you're going to achieve maybe faster or sometimes better using
Yeah.
AI than without. So I think that that pressure to embrace that technology is going to probably remain. I don't think that it means removing humans from the loop, though. I think there's a lot of interesting a lot of value in honing your own craft and your skills and bringing yourself and influencing the work that you're producing with your personality. That's like, you know, I talked earlier about it's important to have define the definition of your brand personality so that you know when you're working on a product, you're trying to represent that that product brand, not your own personal desires. But it is a fact that every person that works here on those elements will like influence it in a little bit of a
Yeah.
tiny way, or maybe in bigger ways, depending on like the sort of role they have. And so I think that's okay, and that's another way that we get collectively better. Um, so yeah, I think I mean that was a bit of a winding sort of road down like AI, but I think yeah, be curious, experiment, play, create. Design is about, you know, getting an idea from your head onto a screen or paper or whatever it is, as accurately and as fast as possible. And it takes some time, it takes repetition and practice before the idea in your head is something that you can produce in the way that you want to.
Yeah. No, that is very true. Well, thank you so much for joining the show today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.